This is Rennes School of Business webinar about the iMBA program. I'm so glad that you're here. We're going to start. I would like to welcome Dr. Dieter van Wallenham, iMBA Program Director and Professor of Finance, and Dr. Santiago Garcia, Dean of the Global School. Have a good webinar, and please take it away, Dr. Santiago Garcia.
Thank you very much, Lucy. Thank you very much, Lucy. Welcome, everybody. I see that we have people from everywhere in the world joining this webinar. That is really good. And I hope that I will see many of you very soon in Rennes School of Business in France. In this webinar, we're going to be speaking a little bit about the iMBA. It's a program that is quite disruptive in the market of MBAs, as you will see in the following slides and in the following presentation. Accompanying me today, there will be Professor Van Wallenham, Dieter. You can call him Dieter, it's probably easier. And he is the program director for this program. He was a key person in the inception of the program, the conception of the program. And like everybody else in Rennes School of Business, him and I, we have a very international background. I am Spanish. I lived literally all over the world in all the continents except for Australia. And Dieter, he is Professor Van Wallenham. He is Belgian. He lives now in France, but he also studied in the US and somewhere else in the UK as well. He's got, I think, a master from Oxford and a PhD from the Wharton School. And yeah, we're going to give you some information about the program, and then we will be opening to question and answers. So feel free to write all the questions in the chat. We will be collecting them, and we will answer them later on in the presentation. Can we have the first slide, please? So I'm going to walk you a little bit and tell you, let's see if the slide is working. Okay, perfect. I will start with a brief introduction about what the MBAs are and how they were created. The first MBA was created, in fact, in France. In Paris, to be more precise, more than 100 years ago. So it is traditionally a very old program. Among all the masters that you can probably find in education, in business education, the MBA will be among the oldest programs, especially the ones who have a brand by themselves, right? Usually how these programs evolved was by adding new themes, adding new items to either the pedagogical methodology or as themes to treat in the program itself. So, for instance, when we have the biggest scandal of Enron back in the time, everything was about corporate social responsibility, about ethics. Then we have the oil crisis, everything was about sustainability and lack of resources. Then with this recent crisis in 2009, we saw that the prevalent theme was innovation entrepreneurship. Why? Because the massive job losses that ensued the crisis, that was a way to see, the MBA was adapting to that by offering possibilities for students to become their own bosses, right? This is how traditionally they have evolved. So it's like a big old Mercedes, really good quality car, but they evolved from a long time, incorporating new things. But really, the architecture remains a bit old-fashioned. The majority of MBAs existing nowadays. Okay. Then they tend to be generalistic, and some of them they are extremely niche. Okay, like the wine MBA that used to be, or the aerospace MBA that still exists nowadays, or they are very, very broad. And then the other characteristic that usually MBAs had was that they were probably the most expensive among the portfolio of programs of all the business schools. We tried to change all this. Okay, so we wanted to have an MBA that was fresh, that was conceived from scratch for new generations, yes, incorporating the new things, but already not the new things, but the things that are going to be prevalent from now on into the future, okay? And we wanted to have a program that would be generalistic enough so people will have an idea of business, but also allow for concentrations, okay, in case they wanted to study something specific. And another thing that we wanted to break completely was the fact that the idea of the MBA being expensive. Okay, if we can have the next slide, please. So this, what we created here, we created a program that is focusing in a completely new landscape. With the coronavirus crisis now, we all see that the world around us has changed completely. In the conception of this MBA, what we did was we took the third-party sector, so NGOs, particularly the United Nations. We work with corporations as well to define, okay, what are the skills and what is the knowledge that the students need to know, not now, okay, but also in the future, okay, now and in the future, but most likely looking at, at the future, right? And from that, the conception of this MBA was born. Okay, so it's not like the very old traditional MBA. It's quite a disruptive MBA in terms of content, as you will see later on, in terms of philosophy, as you will see later on. Yes, all these themes that we're going to be treating, like artificial intelligence, for instance, like other themes such as triple bottom line goal setting, how to do good by doing well for the company as well. Yes, all those have been, again, created completely from scratch in collaboration with corporations and with the third sector. Then this will enable to have a skill set for the graduate that is currently not out in the market. Okay, the companies, they come to us always complaining, well, I don't need somebody who can just churn data on an Excel, okay, and give me the information and just maybe polish that information a little bit. Nowadays, there are artificial intelligence tools that can do exactly that. Okay, so that's not what I need on a person, on a graduate. We will see the characteristics of the graduate that they need in the coming slides. And what we wanted to have as well was, we wanted to have an MBA where price would not be an issue to do an MBA. Okay, and not only price would not be an issue, of course, everything has to be priced, but we wanted to get the best value for money of all triple accredited MBAs out there. There are, at the moment, I think 90 schools in the world that are triple accredited. We are one of them. And this MBA is, without a question, was created to be the best value for money of all the MBAs. You will see how in a second. One of them is, for instance, we have a tuition that is extremely affordable at 20,000 euro. Okay, when the value of this program would be more like twice that value. Okay, we do have unique sources of funding that allow us to decrease that tuition fees, and we are also giving ourselves some internal scholarships to allow the students from certain countries with certain occupations, with certain skills, that they want to do an MBA, but otherwise they wouldn't be able to. Okay, so 20,000 euro, but we can even give some more scholarships on top of that. Yeah, best value for money of any triple accredited business school. So quality and price like no other program. If we can go to the next slide, I will speak a little bit now about what is it that we conceive in this program. What are the skills? What is the persona? What is the graduate of this MBA? So the graduate of this MBA will be eminently international. Okay, they will be speaking the local language that they come with, be it Spanish, be it English, be it whichever language it is. They will, of course, speak English because all the program, full 100% is in English, and they will speak at least French as well if they don't speak it already, because we will be teaching French as one of the core parts of the program is languages too. Okay, so we will have twice as many hours devoted to language as any other master in the school. So that will ensure that the student finishes with with some added value apart from all the technical, all the the thinking, but also the ability to communicate in another language. Okay, being in France, that could make a big difference to find a job here as well. Okay, so international, all the students will come from everywhere in the world. We are looking at now students applying from literally all the 5 continents. We have from North America, we have from Latin America, we have from Africa quite a big number. We have even from Europe as well. We have from everywhere in the world the students applying already for this program. One concept that we wanted to emphasize as well was that of impact. Okay, so we want to have people who are able to make an impact in the world around them. This is very important for 2 things. We want to have persons in the program who are already eager to make that impact. So this is something that we look very carefully in an application. Okay, and number two is then once the student gets accepted, we want to give them the skills and we want to give them the eagerness to go out and to change the world as well. Okay, sustainability is something that is very ingrained in the program. Okay, how to make a corporate impact on the needs of society. Nowadays, this is something that is essential in the program. Companies nowadays, they don't look only for somebody who can be a financial analyst, who can be a strategist. They want somebody who can project the image of the company out there, that the company is doing good for the world. We see that now very important in the crisis that we are facing, how most of the companies, they are making a contribution and they are eager to show how they are contributing for the betterment of the world. Okay, so this is something that we have very present in this program as well. Intelligence, same thing. When we're talking about intelligence, here is how to use the tools of intelligence, particularly artificial intelligence, that are available to us. What is it out there that we can use in our companies, that we can use to change the world around us in terms of artificial intelligence? How can that be applied to the person, to the human factor, to basically the person who will benefit and who will be a driver of companies? Okay, insight, again, going into the human factor, what are the capabilities of somebody who faces this program, who takes this program, okay, the internal capabilities that they have not even identified themselves, okay? What are their leadership styles? How can we put forward that leadership from all the components of this cohort? Yes, so this is something that is going to be very important in the program as well. And the final point, the 5 I's, around which it is articulated, the program, is innovation. Okay, so we're going to be disruptive, innovative leaders when you finish the program. That's what you're going to be. Okay, so how to use the innovation tools, how to create your own company, how to see all the developments that are out there, how they apply to your company. Okay, so those are the things that we're going to be seeing in this course, because this is the persona, this is the graduate that the companies want to employ them as a part of the workforce. You can have the next slide, please. Okay, so this is basically the articulation of the program. So the program was, as I said, was conceived about those 5 leadership dimensions, and how are we going to actually infuse those leadership styles, those dimensions of leadership in the program. So we identified the organizational intelligence, very important, yeah, the international business setting, yes. Then digital startup and innovation is central to this program as well, and positive corporate impact as well. Okay, how to do that, how to change the world around us. Then one thing that is extremely important as well is that this program will have 2 study trips, and not to choose between one or the other. It's not either or. Is the 2 of them are mandatory and they are included in the price. Okay, we're going to see a little bit more now about these study trips in the coming slides. Can we have the next slide, please? Okay, so as I was saying, the program will have, because of the unique focus on innovation, we're going to take all the students for 1 week to work in an innovation project and to see the innovation landscape in one of the major capitals in Europe in regards to innovation. There are 3 capitals in Europe about innovation. They are London, Berlin, and the third one is Lisbon. Okay, so we're going to take all our students to Lisbon to examine, to take classes there on innovation, and then to see the innovation landscape there as well. Okay, then the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to go for 1 entire week as well to Morocco to see and to work in one of the Sustainable Development Goals and challenges of the United Nations. We're going to be applying a business solution to that on site in Morocco. That's going to be an application of everything that was learned in the program, plus a little of an adventure trip as well. We will get to see things that probably we don't get to see in our normal life. We want to get students, you want to get leaders who think differently, who are exposed to different types of scenarios. Okay, so this is an essential part of the program as well. Again, 2 trips that are included in the price, and they are mandatory as well, and students will be able to be hands-on in all of those 2 trips. I will pass it on to Professor Van Hadegen now, who will speak a bit more about the actual content of the program.
Thank you, Santiago, and welcome everyone. It's my chance now to indeed explain a little bit how you're going to go through all these courses that you're going to see in our course that are going to embody precisely the identity that Professor Garcia has explained to all of us right now. So first of all, it's important to actually emphasize that the program is not meant to be just a one-size-fits-all. You will all have the choice essentially between one of the 3 specialization tracks in our program, and those 3 specialization tracks build directly on the school's key academic and industry strengths. So those specialization tracks are on operations, innovation and AI, and last but not least, leadership. Okay. Now, these are 3 dimensions that you might already have heard about or know about, but we have taken these dimensions actually to the next level. We've modernized them. We've taken them essentially to to give them a modern twist through innovative courses that will really take you to that frontier of academic expertise that will allow you to become innovative and well, disruptive leaders actually in the business world of tomorrow. The first specialization track is on impactful international operations. Right? So basically, you will all be running companies that will have the opportunity to go abroad, but not only abroad in the traditional sense, but in a very positive sense by delivering positive environmental and social impact. So the courses actually that are in this track are meant to, first of all, teach you what to measure or how to measure essentially the impact that your project has on the local ecosystem, but also on local communities. Okay. Then you will actually also see how you can leverage as a company your purchasing policy to ensure essentially that you do not only give incentives to local suppliers to make heed to all the environmental challenges that we have these days, but also on how your company actually can help to create a better income equality or to empower essentially developing nations. All of that will also be supported essentially through courses that will teach you how to use digital tools and digital innovation to actually guide you in this process of delivering positive impact through your international operations. So anyone essentially who is seeking to specialize in this track, right, should pick this one and essentially will learn how to really deliver positive environmental and social value through their company's international operations. The next specialization track is on innovation through artificial intelligence in business. So as Professor Garcia already mentioned to us as well, so our program is designed to indeed create innovative leaders who are really disrupting the market through new technologies, new business solutions, new services. But of course, innovation is not done anymore as it was in the past. And essentially, we are recognizing this in our program by enhancing or making actually innovation possible and capable through artificial intelligence solutions. So the specialization track will not only at a strategic level teach you essentially how AI can be used, that is essentially how it can help marketing, how it can help supply chain, how it can help general strategy setting, but also on the operational side, we'll actually teach you tools for artificial intelligence on both numeric data and on textual data. Now, in addition to all the capabilities that AI actually has enabled these days, of course, there's also concerns about artificial intelligence or data having become too invasive, essentially. And to balance this off, we also have essentially an orientation towards responsible AI to make sure essentially that any innovation that you have will also be in line, for example, with the GDPR, and will ensure that there is a nice balance essentially between the capabilities that AI offers without risking essentially any elements on privacy and on human dignity. And then the last specialization track is essentially for those of you who really want to become architects of positive organizations, because many organizations these days are not as efficient as they could be, or have dysfunctionalities that are directly related essentially to a, let's say, a incomplete knowledge of the human factor. In the Insight and Managerial Leadership track, we essentially built on the recent findings, or most recent findings in positive organizational psychology, on how to design organizations that will ensure that people are able to flourish at a professional level, in an intelligence level, but also at the human level, to create positive organizations. Not only will you be taught how to design those organizations from scratch, you'll also be taught on how to convert existing organizations and bring them precisely to this innovative design. You will actually be trained on how to become coaches for your employees and your managerial team, so that any capability that you bring in can be leveraged to the fullest potential. And last but not least, you will actually be seeing how your human capital can then essentially be managed in the most appropriate way to be ready essentially for all the challenges that the labor market actually will impose on the future employee of the employee of the future. Now, as Professor Santiago already mentioned, the identity of the program, right, is built around the 5 I's that are really the persona of the program. And this persona, of course, is translated into the courses. In fact, if you wish, we have 5 knowledge blocks that are going to translate precisely the identity of the program to the day-to-day courses that you will be receiving over the course of a year. The organizational intelligence courses are really essentially there to set the ground-basing building blocks for you to be able to take any idea, any plan, business plan that you have, and bring it to fruition through a proper quantitative and financial implementation. Okay, you will have an innovative course in statistics, not one that will be teaching on the theory of statistics, but that will teach you on the applications, right? Because business these days is extremely data-driven, and even though you will not necessarily be taught to become theorists on statistics, you'll become intelligent consumers of data and how to essentially apply the data to really enable your company to advance and grow. Of course, in addition to that, you have to have a proper understanding of the different dimensions of economic forces and how they impact corporate strategy, how they enable corporate strategy, but also potentially make it more complicated to set out certain strategic directions. And on top of that, of course, you need to have a full understanding of all the costs that your company is facing and how that actually leads to setting up a proper business plan. The second building block, or knowledge block, essentially will take all of the basic building blocks to the international level. There, essentially, you will have courses on global operations, okay? Because once you actually have an understanding of how your company works at the most basic level, you will come to understand then through this building block how this knowledge can be levered essentially when you're entering new markets in a lean and effective way, right? Because resources in the future are probably going to become scarcer and scarcer, and companies are going to be more and more successful the more efficient and effective they can deal with the resources that are at hand. You will also be having to become knowledgeable essentially about reading the geopolitical risk factors, but also opportunities of going abroad. Geopolitics is the order of the day. Global governments are becoming increasingly complex to read, to work with, and as students essentially of a international MBA program, it's paramount interest that you indeed also get a full understanding of this. The global macroeconomic environment has a tremendous impact on any corporation, and corporations really do not exist anymore in isolation within their national context. So we will teach you also on how to essentially read the macroeconomic environment, how monetary policy essentially can be expected to influence your company, and how you can then actually set a course for your company through these economic waters. And last but not least, as you're going to be entering foreign countries, foreign territories through your company or through your projects, you have to actually be learning how to work and deal with local cultures. How cultural variety essentially is both an enabler, but also an inhibitor potentially of certain courses of action that you actually might have thought feasible. Okay, so in managing cultural complexity, you will essentially learn about how to best go about to enhance or increase as much as possible the chance of success of any international project that you might have. The MBA program really wants to hammer on the innovation dimension, because essentially this is how your companies or product will indeed catch the attention of the future consumer. Now, we are planning on doing this through a enhanced digital bath, if you wish, courses that will actually teach you on how to innovate not only at the process level, but also at the product and service level, but also teach you essentially that innovation these days is no longer a business of single companies. Open innovation is used more and more as a model for corporations across the world, where partnerships are being created and broken up actually at the level of projects every day to really ensure that companies are flexible and bring together their expertise in short term to deliver an innovative solution to the market in the shortest time possible. It's also in this innovation block essentially that fits, of course, the Lisbon trip that Professor Garcia has already talked about. And it is also essentially the setting for one of the courses, because in fact we're going to lever the expertise of one of our partnership institutions for teaching essentially some of the key skills in how to use our AI for innovation. Then the fourth knowledge block will talk about how to create impact through the various business dimensions, not only through how to, for example, set up sustainable marketing policies, but also in supply chain networks management, and accounting. So this impact knowledge block is one of the key identities essentially of our program, and is really going to enable you to deliver positive impact, which is so important for consumers, but also more and more for investors who are facing increasing desire essentially to create shared value through their money. And this ranges actually not only from banks who are getting pressure from savers and governments, but also private investors who really want to have positive impact through their investment strategies. And then last but not least, of course, as MBA students, you're all designed to, or all trained to become leaders of the future. Leaders that will be effective thanks to essentially a set of key courses that will develop your personal and group insights to the fullest. So in fact, you're going to start off the program with a course on leadership through personal development, because a true leader actually knows where his capabilities lies, but also where their limitations lies, and learns to develop those, embrace those, and then essentially become a better leader through creating essentially an open view of anyone he's going to be working with. But also at the marketing level, right? It is very important essentially to understand how consumers essentially, what makes consumers tick, and to not only essentially use that information to create a market, but also to create a sustainable market. The human psyche can be used essentially, or knowledge of the human psyche can be used essentially for good. So human psyche in business and consumer decision making is actually also in line with our positive impact that we're trying to create through the program. You will also have to essentially know how to communicate your ideas to a global audience. And for that, essentially, we're going to partner up with people who are going to, from the arts and entertainment industry, who are going to really give you a most innovative view on essentially how to communicate at the business level to make sure that your consumers and your employee audience really feels what direction you want your company to go into. And last but not least, you will also essentially be taught how to negotiate appropriately in global teams, right? And this is actually one of the key elements, of course, for a challenging business environment where partnerships are the name of the day. And that's actually what we're going to also teach you actually in terms of last knowledge. So I'm going to pass the word then on to Professor Garcia, who's going to finish off with a few words on the careers services that our program is going to offer.
Yeah, so basically all this course, all this program was designed to make a difference in the world out there. But who makes the difference in the world out there? It's you. It's the leaders that are going to be created with this program. And to make that difference, you need to be employable. And that's why we designed as well for this MBA a unique way of ensuring your employability. Okay? I have spoken with many experts in HR. I have seen, I am myself an evaluator of MBA programs worldwide with AMBA. I'm a distinguished assessor of AMBA. And I have seen all the practices, career practices to help with employability. And I must say that we have to create something that was beyond anything that existed there. So in addition to having career workshops, in addition to having the mock-up interviews, role play, in addition to having all the electronic platforms as well that will be available to you, we designed a program whereby career services, there will be one class, we call it Careers Passport, and that will be a mandatory part of the program with regular classes as well, which will be theoretical and practical. That means you will have 1 day a week, 2 hours will be dedicated to career services. So you will study a theory or you will study the idea about one specific concept, for instance, how to make the best of LinkedIn as your job search, okay? And then you get explained that concept, you will play a little bit with it in class, and then the next week, you're expected to deliver, the tools that you have learned and how you have worked with it for that week, okay, on how to improve your LinkedIn profile, how to do networking on LinkedIn, etc., etc. So we will do that with 20 different themes that we have identified, okay? Interviewing skills, same thing. There will be mock-up interviews as well. Negotiating salaries, same thing. Theory and practice, and that as a mandatory part of the program regularly, and we will be checking on the progress for career employability every single week. Okay, this is something that most schools do not do. They do have coaches, they do have some sort of structure or less structured ways to approach career services, but we have immersed that into the program. Okay, so this will hopefully allow you to get a very good job after graduation and to know more about yourself, about your profile as well, even to maybe change your mind about what you originally thought would be your career. Okay. And now I believe that we are well with time, but we have quite a few questions to answer. And I don't know if I should leave Lucy moderate this, or if I can start, especially if I could start, if you allow me, Lucy, with one question that I see there from a person that I still don't know, but I will know him very soon in January. His name is Pedro Santamaria, and is a person from Ecuador. And I remember Pedro very well. Pedro probably is hearing me now, but he doesn't know this story. But Pedro was one of the earliest applicants this year for the program, and he secured his place quite fast in the whole process. So I do follow those cases, and I remember the file of Pedro myself personally. So he's asking, well, in the current context, with the world changing the way it's changing now, and with this crisis that we're facing out there, what happens if we cannot start the program? Well, we do not really consider that a realistic possibility, okay, because of the following. Because from now until the regular semester starts, which is in September, we still have 5 months to go, okay? And we are now at a stage that France is going to start opening up in a couple of weeks already, okay? So within 5 months, which is September, things will be much, much clearer. And the message from the government is very clear, is in September, we open universities. In France, the message is clear as that. But in addition to that, we're not talking about the September intake. We're talking about our intake starts in January, okay? So our intake starts in January. That gives us roughly 9 months, okay, from now until that moment, okay? We really seeing all the statements from the political leaders, all the evolution of the COVID. I'm following very carefully the statistics, and we are already starting the phase of deconfinement in a couple of weeks. So I really don't think that this is something that will happen, okay? If it happens and we need to postpone, okay, or if we need to have the students joining a little later, that is entirely possible as well, okay? Because even if in France, things are going to be okay, maybe in the country of origin of the student might not be okay. If that is what ended up happening, the modular delivery of this course could potentially allow students to start a bit later on, okay, and still continue the year after, okay? We don't think that that will happen, okay? If in 6 months we see that the evolution is such that things are a bit more complicated, we will put additional measures in place to make sure that the students do get the education they need, okay? But again, we consider that a scenario extremely, extremely unlikely at the moment. September intakes will be a bit not disturbed, but we allow 2 weeks, 3 weeks more of delay in entering the class, okay? If we need to do that with the January intake, and this is a January intake program, we can do the same as well, there's no problem, okay? Thank you very much for your program, Pedro, for your question. That was a very good one.
Thank you very much, Professor. Pedro is saying also thank you for your answer. Pedro, let us know if you still have doubts. I'm guessing this is something that all the participants would like to know, of course. So let us know if something is not clear. Professor Santiago, Pedro also asked about when should he choose the specialization. That was another question that I think you answered. So they want to know, should they choose from the 3 areas before applying or during the MBA? What is it like? I see that Dieter is saying, let us know.
It will be. I will just respond with this answer, but then I will let Dieter continue. No, you do not need to choose before you start the program. In fact, is when you start exploring the program is when this should happen. But Dieter can give more details.
Yes, thank you, Lucia and Santiago. Indeed, you actually don't have to choose until in the summertime, essentially, of the program, by which time essentially we'll have had a taste or a flavor of all the core courses that build on which essentially specialization tracks will build. Because we fully understand that it is not possible for people who are coming from a different background than business to fully have a notion essentially of what the specializations or what specialization would be best for them. And for that, actually, we actually give you the flexibility to wait until the summer of the program to then pick your specialization track. In fact, the specialization tracks are only scheduled towards the very end, essentially, of the program itself, just that actually will allow us plenty of time, essentially, for then the organizational elements of that.
Okay, good. Everyone, here is RSP email address if you want to send in your questions and doubts, curiosities in the following days. I would like to remind you that you will also receive an email from Doxity. Share it with your friends, your colleagues, and we will send you deadlines and everything that you need to know to possibly apply. Dieter, you were talking about different backgrounds. I saw a question before from this participant, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I have always studied only engineering, but I have a great desire to study an MBA. How can I succeed in this type of study, being an engineer?
Well, the key thing actually, I don't know to which person I'm addressing. What is his name?
No name.
No name? Okay. So, so the key thing essentially that one has to know about an MBA program is that it always has been designed to actually take people from a very basic understanding of markets and potentially to the highest level of management and leadership. Now, if you have an engineering background, that actually makes you perfectly fit actually for our program, because you will have essentially an analytical training that will allow you to quickly walk through most of the basic courses in business and feel right at home, essentially. In fact, an MBA is most valuable precisely for those people who do not come from a business background, because then they can really learn how to essentially get the most value of their operational knowledge and how to then essentially bring that into the managerial level. So short answer is, in fact, engineers have throughout many years taken MBA programs precisely because they actually want to become managers and want to leverage essentially all their operational knowledge that they have.
Good. And what can you advise Cleomar? She says that she is an avionics engineer. How could this program help her in her career?
So an avionics engineer is essentially, well, let's say essentially that, first of all, international travel is hopefully not going to be disrupted in the future at all anymore, despite the fact that we're going to be facing challenges. But we actually had I had an interesting conversation with someone who from Portugal during one of the recent admissions, who also was in the same industry, and who essentially is telling me that he would like to become essentially now a manager essentially in the avionics industry. And what he was telling me essentially that one of the biggest challenge of the aviation industry is especially sustainability. Okay. And so the second specialization track that we actually have, or the first one essentially in terms of the ordered presentation, but the first one that we had on impact for international operations, it would be a perfect fit for someone who wants to actually leverage their knowledge from the aviation industry and now become essentially a manager essentially in that sector.
Great. And we were talking about knowledge. For another participant who, for example, studied agriculture, he or she says, I have very poor knowledge of finance. What happens? What can you advise him or her?
What is her background again in agriculture?
Agriculture. Santiago wants to reel in. Are you on mute, Santiago? Sorry.
Now
Yes,
okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So student, somebody who has a background in agriculture and who has, who's thinking, well, can I do finance, in this program? MBA, the MBA program is supposed to have anybody who has sufficient analytical skills, okay, and who has a good knowledge, a good training before, and is intelligent. And this is determined by looking at the transcripts of classes that they have taken in the past. Okay, they should be able to cope with finance material even if they have never done that before. My experience in running MBAs, and I've been in the business of running MBAs already for more than 10 years, I've seen that this is a very critical question for most people. It's like, oh my goodness, I'm really not good at at numbers. I'm marketing, I am psychology, I am but numbers is not my thing. Am I going to be able to to pass? My experience is that, well, if people have done finance before, they will be breezed through, okay, but that doesn't mean that the other backgrounds cannot pass, okay. In fact, that is a common question, and most students, all of the students, not all of the students, but the students typically, they do pass that. It will take them a little bit more effort, but that's why in the cohort of students, there will be students with an engineering background, with an agricultural background, with a psychology background, maybe with linguist background, and they will all be a specialist in a given topic. And that's the richness of the MBA. The richness of the MBA is not just a professor speaking in front of the class and delivering knowledge. What's happening in an MBA as well is the knowledge that goes in between participants and this effect of cohort, helping each other and whatnot, and playing with the strengths of the team members because they will be working in teams, okay? And this is something that happens not only in the classroom, but this mimics real life as well. So the short answer is you should not have a problem. If you're accepted to the program, it means that we consider that you have what it takes to pass all your classes. Otherwise, we would not accept you already, okay?
Okay, I think that we are all good regarding the different backgrounds. So I would move on to, we received a suggestion from Patrick. He wanted to know if you have public speaking during the program.
Yes. So that essentially is one of the if you remember the course essentially, and I can actually go back, but there's the course on effective communication for global leadership. So that course precisely is going to talk not only about public speaking, but also speaking essentially in writing. And that's actually why I mentioned that that we're going to partner up with people from the arts and culture sector, because who better actually than people actually who have theater experience on how to essentially teach you on how to become effective public speakers, right? So yes, we actually have that incorporated in the program, and in fact, in a very fun and innovative way that you're going to be taught to become effective speakers.
Great. Let's talk about scholarships, please. Are there any scholarships available for international students? And for those who already are in Europe, can their companies sponsor them during the MBA?
Yes. So companies themselves, of course, can sponsor them. That's something that will be decided by the company level itself. Now, we of course look forward to engage in any partnership that companies approach us with. But of course, it's the candidate's responsibility, or we leave it up to them essentially to come up with their funding proposals. Then scholarships, yes, we actually offer a wide variety of scholarships based on both academic merits, but also on personal background, the origin of the people. And so basically the list price that we have as 20,000 euros is indeed not necessarily what everyone will end up paying, thanks to actually the extensive variety of scholarships that we have.
Okay, thank you very much, Dieter. I received a message about, is there a maximum age for this MBA? Some people are thinking about going back to looking back at their education. So do you have any limits in regards to the age?
Actually, we don't. It is, to some extent, I actually would like to build on what Santiago has said, that an MBA program, indeed, its value comes from the richness, essentially, of people from different backgrounds, but it also comes from different generational backgrounds. And so we do seek to actually create a nice balance as well from people with a lot of experience, with people together with people actually with only limited business experience, because precisely that dynamic essentially will deliver, in our opinion, the answers to the great challenges that societies are faced with in the future, right? So they're not only environmental, but they're also social and generational. And so the more we actually create such an environment for discussion and such a platform for discussion within the program, the more likely everyone will become effective leaders, essentially, to answer these business challenges.
And what about the other side of the coin? Do you have examples of students, for example, who just finished their bachelor's and started the MBA? Do you recommend waiting for a little bit? I see Santiago.
Well, Santiago, do you want to answer this?
Okay, I can go ahead if you want. No, this program is AMBA accredited. This has the triple accreditation, okay? And by definition, any program that is AMBA accredited will not accept any student, any applicant who has less than 3 years of work experience post-graduation. So Before they come here, they have to have already graduated, and 3 years after they graduated from a bachelor's degree. Okay, otherwise it's not possible. So 3 years is the minimum work experience that we require. Okay.
It's also true actually that an MBA program simply is not valuable for someone without a professional experience. All the courses essentially that we will be seeing are highly practical in nature, and so it also adds to the questions that were asked about do I have the right background to fit this program? Yes, you do, essentially, because all the courses are not geared at a highly theoretical level. They are geared to actually leverage your professional experience that you already have. But that's essentially already saying it. It leverages professional experience, and internships usually are not let's say immersive enough, essentially, for people to really understand what the fundamental challenges are of the corporate environment to really get the value of an MBA. So waiting, yes, because it's only after 2 to 3 or 4 years that you actually really have gotten to a level where you know a company through and through, where you know a sector through and through. It's only at that point, essentially, that I think that an MBA really adds the most value, which is also why iMBA essentially has set up these guidelines essentially for only taking 3+ years of working experience as the benchmark really for an MBA program.
So if you have to have at least 3 years, how long does the MBA last? So how long do you have to be committed to the program before going back to the job market?
I don't understand the question, I believe.
Because, so you don't recommend, for example, this participant who just graduated to already go to an MBA, right? So he's asking, sorry?
No, exactly, no. So how many years should that person work? Well, so basically 3 years is more than enough. So if we think, for example, about many of the world's largest consulting firms, for instance, they have an active policy of saying essentially you work with us for 3 years, and it is well known that after 3 years it's up, you move up inside the company, or essentially you move outside of the company for a while to actually expand your knowledge base. So 3 years is the minimum, right? There are people that for their own professional reasons might stay up to 5 years in their company. But if you plan ahead right now, it is very hard to say. I would say that you need 3 years to be prepared to get value out of an MBA, but there's no reason why one would not wait for 5 years, for example, to finish certain projects that they have set up. That really depends on their own professional story as well.
Okay. Daisy was asking, what is RSP official language? Learning French now would be a difficult task. What can you tell her?
Who wants to take it? Well, I can. So basically, the official language in Rennes School of Business, in the school itself, is definitely English. So I can testify, and Santiago can testify. We are both non-French native speakers, even though we have a bit of a flexible tongue in terms of adopting and learning new languages. But the school's administration, the school student body, are all so international, essentially, that there is no reason why you cannot get by, essentially, at the school level for sure, in English. Now, why do we recommend actually French? It is a challenge indeed. We recommend it actually primarily because France still is a very dynamic job market, okay? And we actually want people to take most of the advantage of all of our professional and corporate links that we have in France to potentially have a chance to indeed find a career here, right? And so French for that reason actually is one of the, let's say, a challenge that should be turned into an opportunity for the people who are going to study in our program, okay? But so, and if it's Daisy, right? So if Daisy actually is, in addition, then by extension, concerned about her life here for almost a year in Rennes, I can also say that Brittany is actually one of the most open-minded regions in France, and that even actually in town, there's many of the local commerces whose owners and patrons speak English. So even her social life, essentially, she should not be concerned at all, essentially, about the fact that she will be learning French, right? But in the beginning, of course, mastering primarily English.
Yes.
Perfect. I'm going to choose Luis Claudio's question. He was asking about what happens after the MBA. Can we look for a job in France or in the EU? Yes, Dr. Santiago.
I volunteer for that question, okay? No, you do not have to go back to your country immediately. You have, I think it is about 2 years that you can still stay in the country to look for a job, okay? That is the current policy. Most of our students who want to stay in France, they do get jobs in France, okay? All of our master's programs, usually the students tend to get jobs here. France, opposite to many countries where they say, look, you know, you study here, you finish your studies, and then you go back immediately. France is not like that, okay? France has an extremely generous visa policy that allows students, one of the most welcoming countries for immigration, in fact, and for studying abroad and then staying over after finishing studies. So the answer is you can stay here, yes.
Perfect. Let's tell Cyprien, I think that's how you pronounce it. How long does this iMBA last?
So course-wise, essentially, you will have 12 months of courses, okay? And in addition to that, actually, then you will have 3 to 4 months of internship combined essentially with the finishing of your final project for the program. Okay, so it's a total essentially of 15 months, right? I mean, I just said 3 to 4 months because, of course, we're not going to prevent someone who has a very interesting internship opportunity that goes beyond 3 months. We're not going to, you know, that person obviously should be encouraged to take those internships, but officially for the program, after 3 months, the final delivery of the project will be due. And from that point on, essentially all the academic requirements should have been met.
Okay. I'm guessing this question is regarding the exam, the entrance exam, if there is any for the iMBA. What books do you recommend? Articles, podcasts? How can one prepare to enter RSP?
We have not set up actually a policy of entry exams, primarily actually because we are looking for a very broad audience anyhow. And so many of the, for example, standard management tests, we feel have a bit of a too narrow of a focus essentially to really attract the rich audience that we actually are seeking to select into our program. So bottom line, no entry exams and no analytical or mathematical entry quizzes as well, because we actually don't find them crucial to actually select the best audience for the program.
Mm-hmm. I do have a question though. When we look into, you know, this program in terms of admissions, it's not that just, you know, anybody can get into the program. It's actually more, you know, we're quite rigorous in the way that we evaluate the applications. But we don't have an entrance exam per se. What is the entrance exam per se? There are 2 entrance exams, but they are not entrance exams. So number 1 is your grades. How were your grades while you were studying your career? Okay, your studies, your bachelor. Okay, so we will look at every single class, and we will look at, well, this person is more quantitative, is not so quantitative, and that will already give us a first impression of the academic capability of the student. Okay, then following that, there will be another thing that we study very carefully, and it is, okay, what is the academic progression of this person? Okay, so was this person holding a job of responsibility? What were the responsibilities? What is the type of profile that somebody needs to have to keep the job that this person was having? Okay, what are the managerial capabilities as well? So this is another thing that gives us a little bit about, you know, how is the candidate in terms of devoting him or herself to a task, okay? How do they perform as well in the real world? So those are things that we look at very carefully. And then the third thing is, there's always an admissions interview that is done online, but when we have any question, any further question, we will as well set up a call, okay, with the person, and we do contact the referees of the person as well to know all those dimensions. So it's not that you apply and you're accepted. It's definitely not like that. Okay, we definitely look at, very carefully all those elements. Okay, but for us, having one test that lasts for 4 hours, it doesn't really give us as much information as all this process that I just outlined, because 4 hours in a test tells me very little about a person, in fact.
Okay, let's do this one last question that arrived. How many applicants get accepted for the intake?
We will not have more than 50 applicants. We will not have the class more than 50, okay? So what we are thinking of is, if we have a class, the minimum class size, I can tell you already, is 20, okay? And in fact, that is a regulation by iMBA. So iMBA will not have any program that is fewer than 20 people per cohort. So that is the minimum, but we don't want to go over 50 as well. The number will be between maybe 20 to 40. Okay, it's a bit too early to say because we are about 7 months still from starting the program.
Well, I hope we have a few representatives from Doxity from this webinar. Let's finish with another question from Luis Claudio. He was asking if the MBA is full-time or part-time. Can we work during the program? He's a little bit concerned about the costs. I'm guessing because the Brazilian real is not very advanced when being in.
Yeah, I can answer that because in fact I had a lot of students who were from Brazil, and I can tell you the program is very, very full-time. Okay, so the program will take you away from the job market for 1 year. Although the program lasts a bit more because you still have to go and do a thesis, you still have to go and do maybe a professional, a professional placement. But after 1 year, January to December, then you're free to go. And how do you actually fund your studies? Okay, if your currency is not so high. Well, first of all, like I said, this is the best value for money program of any triple accredited MBA. So let's say the program already costs 20,000 euro. Yes, that includes already the study trips, so you don't have to pay extra for the study trips. And then let's say you get a scholarship for 300, 400, 500 euro maximum, maybe. Okay, so you may be paying between 15, 16, 17, 18,000, maybe 20,000 maximum you will be paying for this program. Okay, that is in itself a huge scholarship. Now, the other thing that the government in France has, they have automatically every student, be it French or international, they already have a stipend by the government. It's called CAF. And that pays about 1/3 of the living expenses. Okay, that pays about 1/3 of the rental apartment. So it's about 150 to 180 euro. If you have in mind that Rennes is a place where it's very inexpensive to live here, okay? Here is not like in Paris that you're going to be paying easily to live. Here, to give you an example, here, including apartment, food, and everything, 1 month can cost you about 700 euro, 800 euro, okay? From 700 euro upwards, you can already live here. This is something that if you compare, for instance, let's say Paris, you will be paying 3 times as much for life there, okay? So the program is extremely affordable in that sense.
Okay, thank you very much, Dieter and Santiago. We have answered most of the questions. For those who wrote, but we couldn't, here is Ren's email address. Professor Dieter, Professor Santiago, do you have any final advice, any final words for our attendees?
Well, just, start applying earlier, okay? Because the earlier you apply, the better it is. In fact, for the attendees in this webinar, okay, if you apply within 24 hours, or if you start your application within 24 hours, contact us and you may be waived your application fees, okay? Right. But start the application early. And why is that? Because if you want to have a scholarship, you have to apply now. Once the funds have been allocated for scholarships, then that becomes much more complicated.
Okay. Professor Dieter?
I just, I'm looking forward to actually meeting you all at the start of the program. It will be an honor to actually guide you all to your much coveted future best careers in management, wherever that might be across the world. And this MBA program really actually will be a transformation for your career.
Thank you very much. Thank you in behalf of Doxity to Rennes School of Business. This was the webinar about the iMBA, International MBA. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, Professor Dieter, Professor Santiago once again. Santiago just sent you the link, but don't worry, we will also send you an email with that link to possibly apply. I hope you have enjoyed it. I hope you have a good week. And stay safe, everyone, and see you next time. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.